Got something a little bit different than normal today. These are RayNeos. It's not a brand new handheld company. It is a company that makes... Obviously, they make fancy sunglasses. You're wrong. These are XR glasses, which are enhanced, extended reality. I don't know what the X is for. Aliens, XCOM. But regardless... Whoa. They are some cool as flip XR glasses that just came out. They're available on Amazon and through their website. But let's unbox these real quick, and then we will show you all the cool things you can do with your handhelds. Because with these RayNeo Air 2S glasses, you're not limited to an 8-inch screen, or even a 16-inch, or a 40-inch screen. These things claim they give you the equivalent of an over 200-inch screen. We'll see, but first, let's open her up. We have a nice little case. What's in the case? It's all very premium. Ooh! We have the glasses. They have protective film on it. Let's take this off immediately so we can scuff them up. Ooh! Hello. You can see they're a little bit see-through. You can also see my ceiling and my lights. They're very shiny. What do we have inside? Ooh, some nice aluminum frames. And then you can see these screens in there. This is supposed to give you a full 1080p sitting in a movie theater type experience while you're just sitting on the couch or on a park bench. But we'll see. It's pretty slick. What else do we get? This box, which has a user manual, prescription demo. I got the LASIK, so I don't need that. USB-C to C cable, and a nose pad. Whoa, boy. Good Lord. That reminds me, that's every language ever. This reminds me of those manuals you used to get in the back of the Game Genie. Did anyone have a Game Genie for their Game Boy, their regular DMG? It had a thick as all get out manual that would sit in the back of the Game Genie apparatus on your Game Boy. This reminds me of that. We have a USB-C to USB-C cable. Now this angled end here goes into your sunglasses, obviously. And then this is how you connect data. There's no Bluetooth, there's no wireless. Just through the cord. Backup nose pins and a prescription demo. So without further ado, let's plug these things in and turn them on. Are you ready for B-roll footage of me walking around with these on looking like a goof? I am. These glasses are a very sleek looking metallic gray. And they're not they're not going to be mistaken for a pair of designer sunglasses, but they're not ugly either. They're really lightweight. It's about 78 grams, and they don't really feel heavy at all on your face. Don't get me wrong, there is a distinct breaking in period, but it's not like you're wearing goggles like Apple or a full-size headset. They connect with this provided USB cord in the back here. It's kind of form-fitted. It extends from the back of the frame, and it's not really that obtrusive at all, especially considering the fact that you have a cord plugged into your glasses. It doesn't feel like there's a cord in your glasses. When I was wearing them, I just kind of tucked it behind my ear, and I had them connected to my phone in my pocket. It kind of felt like an old Walkman situation. Speaking of 80s tech, these glasses themselves have a very 80s and 90s vibe to me, which is cool because I have kind of an 80s, 90s vibe. I mean, the channel's about retro games. You know where you're at, right? The glasses themselves might look retro, but the image you see inside of them is anything but. Featuring Sony Micro OLED displays, the RayNeo 2S claims to give you the equivalent of a 201-inch screen. This is true, but it's also really situational. If I'm wearing these and looking at a wall 5 or 6 yards away, it seems like a 200-inch TV or even a projector screen. If I use them outside and kind of look off into the ether, it's like I'm at the movies or a drive-in almost. But if I'm looking at something up close, like a wall 3 feet from my chair, the visual effects make the screen seem smaller, just because my peripheral vision knows the wall is close. These micro OLED panels have a fairly granular brightness control built in right into the frames. You can go from a really dim setting for a pitch black room all the way to 600 nits of brightness. If you're outside on a sunny day, you will see through the screen a little bit, but the display is pretty solid. Maybe don't wear them to the beach and expect to have a crisp and vibrant display though. That full sun does kind of wash out the colors a little bit, but it has to be real full sun. You can also toggle between 60 Hz and 120 Hz, but that's going to be pretty situational depending on what device you're using. You also have the option to change the warmness of the image with 3 different presets. I stuck with default but it was a nice option when looking at text from a computer. It kind of helped balance the blue light glow, right? I'm moderately sensitive to motion sickness. Like, if I play too much low-res Minecraft, or I try to read a book in the car, I start to feel queasy. I'm happy to report that these XR glasses never really triggered any of that for me. There's some mild cross-eyed feeling, maybe like the first 2 minutes you use them, but then you adjust, and I really never had too much of a problem with inner ear and eye disconnect from that point on. That's not to say I didn't have any problems with the image though. I don't know if it's my big hunky head, but I always felt like I needed the glasses to be just a little bit closer to my nose. You can adjust the frames 3 different ways, and these nose pads can click in or out to suit your face, but it was never 100% for me. It wasn't bad. I'm not saying it was bad. It was like 95, 98, which is really close to 100. It's still great. But I started to wish there was a way, software side, I could maybe scale down the display a little bit. The issue I had with my big head was with the corners. So if I could have scaled it down just a little bit so that the corners of the screen were more in frame for me, then I think it would have been better. Another very minor issue I had is text on the edge of the screen. Anything in the middle of the screen was fine, and it was still pretty good, fairly far out. But in games where there was small UI text on the very top or the very bottom of the screen, there was a little bit of fuzziness. Nothing game-breaking, and this didn't happen in anything besides Hearts of Iron 4, which is probably my own fault for trying to play a historical map game on this in the first place. But I feel like that 90%, 95% scaling, just scooching in a little bit, that might have helped a little bit too. Also, keep in mind, this is almost certainly an extreme case for people with big heads like me, because I had friends over this weekend, and I had a couple people try it, and none of them had the issues. So it's just a zoo face and or nose problem. If you don't have a giant DP head like me, then it shouldn't be a problem. This thing has weirdly good speakers. On default mode, people around you can hear you. It's not obnoxiously loud, but they'll know that you're playing music or watching a movie. On whisper mode though, you are much stealthier. The frames have 4 full-range speakers built into them, and they're configured in a symmetrical way that keeps the noise from leaking, as long as you're in whisper mode. It's almost like the audio is being transmitted directly into the side of your temples. Whisper mode works too. I made my wife sit next to me as I tried different volume levels on both modes, and she confirmed that Titus from Final Fantasy X was either very audible or completely silent from her spot 3 feet away from me on the couch. Speaking of Final Fantasy X, let's talk about how this works with gaming. These glasses will work with anything that supports a USB-C DisplayPort. Practically speaking, this means you can plug these into a wide variety of Android and x86 devices and get a seamless experience. I have a Samsung S23 and it loaded DeX right out of the box. If you have a phone that doesn't have a desktop mode, it'll do screen mirroring by default. And there is an app that allows you to have more of a desktop experience. I didn't use it too much because I have DeX, but it's there. I was honestly surprised with how many of my existing handhelds work with these glasses right out of the box. My most recent Ambernet guys work flawlessly, from the 556 to the Cube. It was interesting though, because the RG Cube kept that 1:1 aspect ratio. It wasn't a bad experience, but it was a little odd seeing everything crammed into that ratio before my eyes. It did help with the edge of the screen issues I was having though, so you win some, you lose some. I also had success with my RP4 Pro and my Odin 2 Mini. Both of these suckers just worked as soon as you plugged the cord in. I lost the display on the Odin 2, but the display was still there on the RP4 Pro. So anything you might have done with touchscreen, depending on what you plug it into, it could or could not work. For the Odin 2, even though the screen was off, it still worked, but I couldn't see what I was pressing. It wasn't a big deal when I was playing PlayStation 2 because my fast forward was in the top left corner, but if something went wrong, I had to unplug it and then the display would revert back and I could actually use it again. I use this a lot with my ROG Ally X, my Steam Deck, my One X 2-Player Pro, and my work laptop, if you can believe that. For the One X Player 2, I edited my entire Armory Crate video with the glasses on. And it was actually a really great experience. I could switch to full screen and see everything in really great detail. It was unexpectedly awesome. I didn't anticipate that being the case. When I plugged these into my work laptop, I just set my secondary screen to mirror to the glasses, and I used it to read emails for a while. Since it was heavily text-based, I did start to experience more issues with eye fatigue than I did with movies or games. This is a situation where an app on the PC or some more granular display setting could help to shrink the screen, or maybe even use the glasses' internal gyroscope to let you pin screens and then look around between them. However, you can adjust that warmth on the fly, and that did help when I was staring at a lot of text. The majority of my x86 time was spent with the ROG Ally X though, and brother, this thing is slick. Most Steam games or other games through Armory Crate load seamlessly, but games with secondary front ends like XCOM 2 or Midnight Sun kind of break the immersion. You need to unplug the glasses because the system is expecting a mouse input, and with the screen turned off, that's not happening. Outside of those hyper-specific issues, the whole experience is really seamless. I plopped down in bed and played a couple XCOM 2 missions with the audio going in whisper mode and brightness pretty high up, and my wife actively fell asleep while it was happening. She didn't see any screen glare or hear anything to bother her. She just fell right asleep. The one thing I couldn't get to work was the Switch. Now there is a separate Joy Dock available from RayNeo, and it's going to allow you to connect to the Switch, but it's not included in the base package. Just keep that in mind if you're primarily a Switch kind of guy. The glasses themselves have no internal power, so they're drawing from whatever you have them plugged into. Now since they turn off your device's screen and speakers for the most part, there is a little bit of that power draw that's offset, but I did notice my battery level dropping a skosh faster than normal. Also, since you're plugged into the USB-C port, if you have a device with just one USB-C port, you can't charge and play at the same time. Now we do have a lot of handhelds that have both an OTG and a DC port, from Anbernic stuff to the ROG Ally, but for instance, my Odin 2 Mini doesn't. That, coupled with the slight extra power draw, means you're going to need to take a break a little bit sooner than normal. That being said, I was able to play Final Fantasy X for an hour at 4x resolution and only lose like 20% battery. So, it's minimal. Well, it's about that time for What Did We Learn? We learned that, all in all, this is a pretty slick little pair of glasses if you want to enter the XR space. They're a little pricey, but they're way cheaper than, say, those Apple swim goggles. And if you buy them on Amazon, there are usually coupons available. I'll put a link to the best deal in the description when I publish the video, and I'll try to keep it updated. With the previous model, I would routinely see $80 off coupons, so hopefully that continues with these. The screen is vibrant and bright enough for most outdoor situations, and it gets dim when you're in a dark room. The speakers are pretty impressive for being in the frames of a pair of sunglasses, and whisper mode makes you feel stealthy like a spy. The display should be good enough for most people, but if you're lucky enough to have a zoo face like me, you might run into some minor issues where the side of the screen isn't as sharp as the rest of the picture. Also, if you don't have a ton of devices that support USB-C DisplayPort, you might not want to snag these glasses. But outside of the Switch, I didn't run into pretty much anything on my recent devices that didn't work seamlessly. There's probably still a little bit more room for improvement, and maybe we'll see some of these suggestions down the line once the glasses actually release. But all in all, these have been an excellent start on the XR glasses path for me. I honestly thought they were kind of a weird novelty when I saw them at CES next year, but I'm going to actively go to RayNeo's booth this year. I'm interested. I'm a burgeoning fan of these now. Anyway, if you like the video, if you're a burgeoning fan of me, be sure to like and subscribe and let us know what you think. Are you interested in XR glasses? Do you think you'd have a use case for these? I didn't know I needed these until I was able to play a full-blown hour of intense XCOM 2 in bed without any real compromise in brightness or volume, and I didn't even wake up my wife. How about that? Alright, I'll catch you on the flippy flip. Goodbye!